Welcome to Attack It Adventures today. Today we're in Fayetteville, North Carolina at the Airborne Museum. I've been here before, but there's some things that I didn't get to see, like this statue that's honoring a dog. And he was a constant vigilance. The bond between a SOF handler and his canine is eternal, trusting each other in a nameless language. Here we honor our SOF canines that have paid the ultimate price. And then here's all the names of all the dogs that have died. I'll name some off. Ape, Spike, Nora, Boy, Rudy, Freddie, Falco, Pepper, Ties, Shadow. There's one from Australia that his name was Fax. So besides people, there are animals, the dogs, that have actually helped during the fight. And here's the statue of Iron Mike. Last time I didn't really get a good picture of or a video of Iron Mike. I just got a picture. And all the flags are waving today. Look down, there's multiple of dedications. Iron Mike in honor of airborne troopers whose courage, dedication, and traditions make them the world's finest fighting soldiers. The rock base underneath Iron Mike has its own story. In July 1942, over 5,000 men arrived at Camp Toka for training as a new type of soldier, a paratrooper. Over the next few years, over 17,000 soldiers of the 501 1st and 506, 511th and 517th Parachute Infantry regiments trained at Camp Toka. These boulders were acquired with the assistance of the landowner, the U.S. Army, and the city of Fayetteville from the storied Curry Mountain in Toka, Georgia. Today, Curry is the motto of the 506 PIR. And Curry is a Native American word that means stand alone. Paratroopers stand alone as they drop behind enemy lines. We're about to go in like what the military would sit in when paratroopers will drop out of the airplane, and this is what it looks like on the inside. Probably can't see, there's no light in here, so really. And they have a bench. You just sit on it like this. And basically, that's what you do. And that's what they would look like. I love these old war bond posters. Strong in the strength of the Lord, we who fight in the people's cause will never stop until that cause is won. I'm under the C-47 right now. St. Mary-Glease is the war that my grandfather was in. Floyd Bond, that was his name. Here's a map of St. Mary-Glease, and the 82nd Airborne Division dropped right here in Neuville-aux-Plaines. Or they did wear. The guns they used. St. Mary-Glease was the first French town liberated on D-Day. C-47s roared above the French countryside, bringing 82nd paratroopers to the battle. Troopers such as Private Bod Rooney and the 408th Infantry Regiment and Ralph Hayden from the 507th Regiment were making their first combat jumps. 82nd Division soldiers would come by the glider by the amphibious assault. The 505th Parachute Infantry Regiment had the best drop, with 31 of the 118 sticks landing on their designated drop zone. The 505th Regiment assembled and began to move forwards. There were objects, especially St. Mary-Glease, at Key Road Junction, some 5 miles from Utah Beach, during the initial assault. John Steele landed atop the town's church steeple. His parachute caught on the steeple, and he survived by playing dead for several hours until he was captured by the Germans. John Steele is fondly remembered to this day by the people of St. Mary-Glease, and here is a map, a parachute infantry map. The man that had this map, his name was Technical Sergeant Marvin Rennies, Company 508 Parachute Infantry. He carried this map when he jumped in Normandy, and he landed in a swamp, but survived the experience. There's flying bullets around here. I gotta watch out. I'm gonna tell this story because it reminds me of today with taking down the monuments. This is called Nuts. By December 22nd, 1944, during the Battle of the Bulge, the German offensive had surrounded the town of Bastogne, Belgium. Inside the town, General McAuliffe commanded the 101st Airborne Division and other tank and artillery units. That morning, a German contingent approached 101st under a flag of truce and handed a surrendered ultimatum to Major Alvin Jones, commander of the 2nd Battalion, 327th Glider Infantry. The fortune of war is changing, the typewritten note declared. Battalions were ready to annihilate the USA troops in and near Bastogne. The Germans demanded a surrender within 2 hours' time or shelling would begin. The Americans, the note said, would be responsible for civilian casualties. When Jones brought the note to the general and asked him what it said, "They want us to surrender," said Jones. McAuliffe found the suggestion tactically and morally ludicrous, and he began laughing and exclaimed, "Ah, nuts." McAuliffe took up his pencil and prepared to draft a reply. After a few minutes, the general said aloud, "I don't know what to tell them." When McAuliffe asked suggestions, Lieutenant Colonel Kennard, his G3, replied, "Well, sir, that first remark of yours would be hard to beat." The entire staff spontaneously applauded shortly. McAuliffe put his pencil to paper, and it said, To the German commander, nuts, the American commander. This was the entire content of the note delivered to the Germans by Colonel Joseph H. Harper, commander of the 327th Glider Infantry. In the scene in front of you, the German officer is studying the note. A few moments later, Harper took pains to make certain the note was clear. If you don't understand what nuts means in plain English, it is the same as go to hell. That night, the German Luftwaffe began a 4-night bombing assault against the town, but the Americans refused to give in. Remember, after a 10-day siege, American tanks from Lieutenant General George Patton's Third Army lifted the siege of Bastogne. And if I didn't say the words right, sorry. This is a CG-4A Wacko glider. It was American built. It was considered the best glider of the war. It could not carry the weight of the British Horsa glider, but it was mostly used in the Mediterranean, European, Pacific, and China, Burma, India theaters during Operation Market Garden. Welcome to the Vietnam War era.
Large-scale training and exercises were conducted at Fort Benning, Georgia by the 11th Assault Division, reflying the first cavalry.
5 years of freedom. As a Special Forces Lieutenant James Nick Rowe, February 8, 1938, died April 21st, 1989. He was sent to Vietnam in '63 to advise and assist the South Vietnamese government by organizing, training, equipping, and employing the Civilian Irregular Defense Group. Rowe became a prisoner of war, a POW, along with Captain Humbert R. Rocky. After being captured by the Viet Cong communist guerrillas during a CIDG operation on October 29, 1963, during his captivity, Rowe was moved to various POW camps in South Vietnam and spent the majority of his time in the physically abused. Rowe continued to resist communist ideology and attempted to escape 3 times. In December of '68, Rowe successfully escaped 5 years of captivity when he outsmarted his guards and flagged down an American helicopter. Rowe's memoir, 5 Years to Freedom, documents his captivity as a prisoner of war. He became a chief of the Survival, Evasion, Resistance, and Escape training program for the U.S. Army after being recalled to active duty in 1981. The training teaches personnel that are at high risk of capture and the necessary skills to endure isolation, avoid capture, resist exploitation, and survive captivity. Rowe was assassinated in '89. We're in the Whirlwind War, which was Operation Desert Storm. My husband was in this war, so I'll tell you a little bit more about it for those that you don't know about it. This is a 3rd Brigade flag. The unit flag of the 82nd Airborne Division's brigade flew during Operation Desert Storm. And that's what the uniform looked like. And they had gas masks. The biggest fear of American commanders was that Iraq might use chemical weapons. Every soldier was equipped with the M17 protective mask. Iraq's invasion of Kuwait on August 2nd, 1990 was immediately countered by a swift American response on August 7th. President George Bush announced that the United States was sending air, land, sea forces to protect friendly nations in the Persian Gulf, Operation Desert Shield. And this is George Bush Sr., not George Bush Jr. Operation Desert Shield began on August 8th with the deployment of the Ready Brigade of the 82nd Airborne Division. The brigade brought its light anti-tank weapons and M55-1 Sheridan tanks. More than 500,000 military personnel would deploy to the region over the next 6 months. Airborne and Special Operation Forces were a significant part of the offensive capability of the deployed U.S. forces. By January 1991, the United States was at the head of an international coalition poised to push the Iraqi army out of Kuwait. No matter if you're airborne, Marine, Air Force, Army, Navy, no matter what you are, thank you to the ones that served during that time. They don't have much about Operation Desert Shield or Desert Storm. The map. I think my husband was around here in this area, in the marine areas. This is a Sheridan Tank. It was built in the late 1960s. Supports infantry of the 82nd Airborne Division during a 1992 Fort Bragg training exercise. I'm sitting here outside the Airborne Museum. There's a POW flag. But there's the United States Coast Guard, Semper Paratus. If you don't know, my son is in the Coast Guard. And my husband was a Marine. So these are kind of why I do these videos. Because I see that the American flag that is backing the military. I thank y'all for all y'all services. Is General Henry Hugh Shelton, U.S. Army, 1963 to 01. He's the 14th Chairman, Joint Chief of Staff. His military qualifications and rewards are Defense Distinguished Service Medal, Distinguished Service Medal 5, Legion of Merit, Bronze Star, Medal of Valor, and on and on and on. Knighted by the Queen Elizabeth II in 01, awarded Congressional Gold Medal in 02. Then I heard the voice of the Lord saying, "Whom shall I send, and who will go for us?" Then I said, "Here am I, send me." Isaiah 6:8. His key assignments were from 1963 to 2001. That's a lot of work for the military there. See how all the flags are flying? And at the end, the one and only Old Glory.